I'm Emily Mashak, and you're listening to Tuned into NoCo, Town Square Media's public affairs show that lets you know what matters in NoCo. I'm sitting down today with Holly Biggs, a therapeutic and adaptive yoga instructor at Del Sol Community Wellness Center. So thank you for joining me today, Holly.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and I have you in today because I kind of want to talk about New Year's resolutions. It's 2020 now, and I'm sure everyone is thinking about fitness and wellness and health and what they can do. So I thought you would be the perfect person to come on in for that. But before we get into all of that, I just want to talk about you a little bit. How did you find your way to doing yoga?
Well, my real gig is real estate. I've been in that since 2008. I kind of fell into that, and then the studio I was going to had their first teacher training, and it just kind of lit up. I didn't think a lot about it. I just signed up for it, and then I tried to back out many times. Thank goodness they didn't let me out of that. And then after I graduated, I just decided that I really wanted to teach yoga for people that either had larger bodies or didn't think that they could do yoga or they should do yoga. I really found that that was my place because I've had to adapt a lot of the yoga poses over the years as my body has ebbed and flows in shape and flexibility. So that's how I kind of got into it. It was just totally by accident, and I'm so grateful.
That's awesome. Now, you teach therapeutic and adaptive yoga at Del Sol. What exactly does that mean?
So the approach is more therapeutic. So a lot of our students there might have injuries or they've had surgeries or they might have illnesses where they're limited with their mobility. So it's adaptive and we have small group classes. So there's maybe 4 to 6 people so I can really tailor each pose to the students. So it's adaptive in that rather than when you go to a studio, sometimes it's one size fits all where there's 20 people there and you're kind of left on your own devices to get the props out and things. So I, one by one, help people set up. And then I think it's more therapeutic because it is very much one-on-one. I get to know the students individually. And it's just a safe space for them to try some new poses, maybe kind of do something they might not have done before.
Mm-hmm. Are the people in your classes usually beginners, or do you have experienced people who like to come in? What's that like?
I think my niche, the group of people I love teaching, since even before I was at Del Sol, are the novice, the brand new people, the people that think they shouldn't do yoga, they couldn't do yoga for whatever reason. That is who I love to introduce it to. So there's not a lot of form, like ritual type things. It's more, here's a room, here's some basic props. And I always say, if you've taken a middle school PE class, you can do my yoga classes. That's pretty basic. So it's nothing strange like you see on Instagram. So definitely beginners and novice yoga practitioners.
Mm-hmm. And now when I was emailing you to get you on the show, you mentioned that you did restorative, yin, slow flow, and then nidra. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
Nidra yoga. Can you tell me what those are and how they differ from each other?
So restorative yoga, as the name implies, is you get into a pose and you're fully supported with blankets and bolsters so your body can you can just relax. And you're holding this pose, but you're not holding it. I always say in my classes, we really want to try to let gravity, our body weight, and our breath perform the poses rather than doing the poses. So restorative, you get to lay in these comfy, cozy poses for 5 to 7 minutes and then gently switch poses throughout the class. And then nidra is like a yogic sleep. So it's sort of like a guided meditation. And it's said that a 20-minute yoga nidra is equivalent to 4.5 hours of regular sleep. So you lay back in a comfortable position, and then I have a script that I read to lead you through that process. And then the yin yoga is also called deep stretch. So you find a pose. A lot of the stuff we do are hips, lower back, and hamstrings because they're really tight. So you find a pose and you lean into the pose until you have an intensity, sometimes called an edge, where it's not painful, but it is kind of intense. You want to really breathe through that. Over time, what that does is it creates longer muscles that are stronger and gives you more flexibility. And then finally, the slow flow, just as the name implies, we go through a series of poses that match well together, usually 4 to 6 poses. There's a little bit of motion, but it's not like a power yoga. So it's very accessible. And there isn't always like getting up and off the floor. Sometimes we just do the flow standing, and then we do some flows that are just on the floor, not getting up and down.
That all sounds so relaxing. I'm like, oh, I could use a class right now. Now, I saw on your biography, I did a little internet stalking, and you kind of touched on this earlier, but you mentioned that you teach yoga with a mainstream vibe instead of a spiritual vibe. Can you expand on that a little more?
Yeah, because rather than bringing I do some meditation, but I don't really go out there into sometimes in my other classes I've taught, you kind of have tendrils down into the earth, more metaphysical type things that I don't want to turn people off, or if they have certain spiritual beliefs, because I found teaching mainstream, some people have the misperception that yoga is a religion, which I think some people could take it to that point, but it's not really. So I really go in, we start our classes, we close our eyes and just kind of come together, but I don't have a lot of form and structure with that. We just come together, close our eyes and breathe, start class, I close class like that. But in between, I have some yoga music. There's just not a lot of, I don't read from any kind of the ancient scriptures, things like that. It's just very much about being present and mindful and being together.
Mm-hmm. Now, New Year's is here. It's already 2020, which means people are going to be bound to making a lot of health and fitness resolutions. Why do you think start doing yoga would be a good resolution for people this year?
I think another one of my takes to yoga, one of my big things is more than the poses, is being mindful and being present. We have so many distractions going on that I think, especially when you're making resolutions, the first thing people do is if they have a list of resolutions and they mess up on one, is they judge themselves. So I'd like to have a space where, okay, you made this resolution, whether it's to eat or move or whatever, and you didn't follow through on that, be kind to yourself. Maybe just take a moment. I am all for meditation too, if someone just takes some quiet time to meditate, because you can come out of judgment more. You can be in more appreciation of what your body can do, regardless of what it looks like at the moment. So yoga just feeds into that. It brings some motion to that mindfulness. So that's where I think it can really help people. I would love to have people just be kinder to others and kinder to themselves.
Mm-hmm. It kind of gives you an opportunity to make yourself better through a resolution without that added pressure that you could fail.
Right. And a lot of times when we have our opening and closing, I'm also big on gratitude. So typically at the end of class, I'll say, close your eyes and just take a moment to acknowledge you for choosing to come here, because you are investing some time in a class, but taking this time for yourself. Self-care is so important. And then also be grateful for what your body could do in that particular practice rather than comparing it to the day before. So very much about, the gratitude piece as well for the body that we do have.
Mm-hmm. Kind of going off of that a little bit, I've done some yoga myself, and I definitely try to be mindful and present, but it can get frustrating when you see the instructor doing this pose and you just can't quite get there. So what is your advice for people who are facing that frustration when they're starting yoga, especially when they're comparing themselves to the instructor or other people in the class?
So many distractions going on that I think class like that, and someone who's so fluid and can bring their leg up through from down dog and then into, and mine's all choppy. And so that's, but I could see where you could compare yourself with that and then you wouldn't want to go back. Well, and like I said, and that's, I was thin most of my life, and then the last 10 years, what's up with this body? But maybe it's to show, because I don't look like a regular yoga instructor. So right there, and maybe they, if they have something in their mind, they're going to see me and see that I'm not. It's funny because there's all these plus size yoga people on Instagram. I'm not tall enough or big enough to be a plus size yogi. Mm-hmm. I'm more like a little snack size. So it's just okay, I'm not a regular, but I'm not a plus size. I'm just a holly size, I guess. But
I love that yoga is open to people with all different types of bodies.
Well, and a lot of things, like I said, I tend to actually do the class with my students there's different schools of thought on that. Rather than walking around and looking at people, I do the class with my students, and there's nothing really out there, but there are some poses that I can talk people into that I can't quite do just based on my body composition. And I acknowledge that, and say, okay, well, I've got to adapt this piece. And I really try to have people just focus on what they're doing, going inward, not looking around the room, and again, judging themselves against what someone else can do. And that's another reason why Del Sol is nice, because everyone in there is pretty much at the same level, and they all have different needs for different props. So it's not as intimidating as a big class of 20 or 25 people.
Mm-hmm. So clearly, yoga has lots of physical and mental health benefits. What have those been for you personally? How has it impacted you since you've started?
I think it's something I never thought that I would be good at. I was very sporadic in my yoga practice as an adult. So I'm just glad I followed through with it, because it's shown me that I tend to have a normally very loud, far-reaching voice. And so my friends have known me. I have a yoga voice now, which I'm using. And so I'm a natural people person, so I can connect with people, and I love pumping them up. I love giving people support and encouragement to try new things. So that's just kind of kind of expanded me into a different space of kindness and gratitude and just caring for people and loving people in a way that I don't think that when I was younger I was aware I was capable of.
Mm-hmm. So it's really been beneficial not only for your students, but for you.
I think it's very much, and I love to celebrate when someone can get into a pose or a little bit stronger than they once were. And then it's also kind of forces me to keep my own practice up so that I can plan the classes out and kind of see how that's going to piece together. So it holds me accountable too.
Mm-hmm. And we kind of touched on this throughout the interview, but for someone who is hearing this interview and is like, maybe I should do yoga, but they're scared, they don't think they're flexible, they don't think they can do this, what would you say to them?
I would love for them to reach out to me. Everyone at Del Sol, we have, a free consultation. I would love to meet one-on-one or even virtually with people just to let them know they can come see the space and talk to me and meet me. And just to let them know it's a small group. They can come look I guess I can answer any questions they have. But as I always say, if you've been to like middle school PE, you can do yoga. Sometimes I think the hardest part about yoga is when we do those long holds, having that quiet space in your mind where your mind's kind of racing. I think that's harder than actually the poses are. But I love to address, we've had some people that have anxiety, PTSD type symptoms. And so having them see the space first and know that they're not alone, because there's other people in class that might have those same issues too. So I would just say reach out. I would love to talk to whoever might be considering it.
Mm-hmm. How can people reach out to you?
So they can reach out. The website is delsolcommunitywellness.com. My information's on there. We've just gotten the website up, so I apologize that I'm stuttering.
No, you're okay.
It's just Holly at delsolcommunitywellness.com. And I think we're also on Facebook. Anyone can reach out, and then Catherine, who's the owner, can connect them to me if they have specific questions about yoga.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, what other fitness or wellness tips do you have for people in 2020, even if they aren't yoga related?
I think with everything, almost everyone has like a diet and an exercise and a money goal. You kind of see the same things like on vision boards. And my bottom line, kind of my mantra is just to do the best you can every day and not judge yourself. And I would like to see people just kind of pursuing bettering themselves throughout the year rather than saving up and waiting till January. And just if you kind of did bite-sized chunks throughout the year, it'd be much more manageable than being in that all or nothing space in January. So I just say just be kinder to yourself and don't judge yourself, and just really flip it around and focus on the things that you do have and the things that you are doing better at, and just keep trying.
Mm-hmm. So moderation and gratitude seem to be the key themes here for sure.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in today and talking to me, Holly. It was so lovely to learn about your practice, and I'm excited to get to work on this a little bit in 2020. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Again, that was Holly Biggs, a therapeutic and adaptive yoga instructor at Del Sol Community Wellness. For more information about Holly and the classes she teaches, visit delsolcommunitywellness.com.